All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and convene this session to order. This is our county's Health and Human Services Committee. My name is Gabe Albornoz. I have the honor and privilege of serving as chair, and I am joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Sales and Councilmember Lutke. We are here for day two of what we have described in the past as some of our favorite days serving on this body. Yesterday, we heard from a number of advisory boards and commissions through the Department of Health and Human Services that provided critical testimony regarding issues and that they are focused on. I just want to publicly thank the advisory board and commission members for your volunteerism, for your dedication, for your commitment. We are so fortunate here in Montgomery County to have such an incredibly robust and well-rounded group of constituents willing to serve, and your service is critical to the ecosystem of our overall not only Department of Health and Human Services, but Montgomery County government in general. I'm always struck every year that we have these sessions at how interconnected many of these issues are. And oftentimes, policy recommendations, budget recommendations, or I get most excited about is connections between community members and constituents and organizations often happen during these sessions. And I do, once again, want to give a shout out to Councilmember Leventhal, whose idea it was for us to have these sessions in this way. And the timing of these sessions is also important because my colleagues in the executive branch soon, in the next month or so, and have never really stopped, but will be convening meetings with their colleagues in the Office of Management and Budget and begin the process of advising the county executive on his FY27 budget release, which will come out sometime this March 15th. And so this is an opportune time to be able to inform those decisions as they are made, because although the council is responsible ultimately for the passage of the budget, by virtue of the timing and when we receive the budget, more often than not, more than 95% of the county executive's recommendations go through. And so it's important to get recommendations in the budget in before they come over to the council. So with that, we are going to just a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to bring up approximately 3 of our boards and commissions up at a time. Each board or commission will have between 4 and 6 minutes, give or take. If you go a little over, you go a little under, that's okay, to testify and speak on behalf of your board or commission. We will hear from all 3 presentations, and then upon completion of the panel, that's when my colleagues and I will engage and begin to ask questions. So I would like to now bring up the first 3 boards and commissions before us this morning. First is the African American Health Program, followed by the Alcohol and Other Drug Addiction Advisory Council, and the Asian American Health Initiative. If you could all come forward. Good morning. Got to hit your button right by the mic. Perfect.
Yeah. Is that on?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning again. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Council President. Well, Council President Stewart's not here, but just I wanted to acknowledge her and members of the council who are here. I'm Jacqueline Williams, co-chair of the African American Health Program's Executive Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to share our priorities for fiscal year 2027 and to affirm our commitment to eliminating health disparities and improving the health outcomes of Montgomery County's Black residents. As in prior years, AHP's priority recommendations are grounded in a deep understanding of the historical and systematic disparities that continue to impact our community's health. We ask the Council to continue its investment in programs that address the following critical areas: COVID and influenza. COVID deaths and cases seem to be surging again, which is very concerning for the Black population. We want to avoid a repeat of the pandemic, which showed that Black communities were disproportionately affected by COVID-19, resulting in higher infection rate, more severe illnesses, and high hospitalization and high death rates. I'm saying this because Black residents face challenges in assessing affordable care, quality health care, and preventive services such as vaccines. Due to the historical lack of trust of medical information, it's important to promote messages that counter this misinterpretation. All these challenges lead to delayed care and worse outcomes if the surge continues. Just a note on this matter. My family members went on a short cruise in September 2025, last month. All returned from the cruise with varying degrees of the latest COVID strain. We do not want to wait to combat influenza. Flu season is here. The county needs to encourage more influenza vaccinations countywide as influenza is detrimental to us all. At this time, messaging promoting flu vaccinations and clarity about access and cost of vaccines and vaccinations are important to our community if the county expects to achieve better health outcomes. Secondly, mental health supports. The mental health needs of the Black residents are often stigmatized. We ask the council to invest in accessible, culturally affirming mental health programs, including peer support networks, counseling, and outreach services that destigmatize care and build community resilience. Also, continue to fund programs like AHP, which offers culturally competent mental health services that are intricately interwoven throughout all their programs to the Black community. And finally, strengthening community-based care and prevention. Given the stress from the current administration, fissures in the county's healthcare system are highlighted. The list of critical needs of the Black community is long. These include youth healthy choices and youth-centered lifestyle programs, infant and maternal mortality prevention programs such as our SMILE program, promotion of access, screening, and prevention education for breast, prostatic, colorectal cancers, educational messages and outreach on autoimmune diseases such as lupus and Graves' disease, and genetic disorders such as sickle cell disease. During this time of uncertainty, AHP programs addressing hypertension, diabetes, nutrition, exercise, weight management, community conversations, yoga, Zumba, mindfulness, and referrals to social services are integral to the health of the Black community. Finally, integrating prevention strategies into care efforts can help lower emergency room costs and prevent conditions from becoming more chronic. Thank you for your support and your leadership and your dedication. And we urge you to continue prioritizing health disparities in 2027 and to assure that every Black resident has access to care, support, and opportunities needed to lead a healthy life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. Next, we will hear from our Alcohol and Other Drug Addiction Advisory Council.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing from us and always listening. I'm Laura Mitchell. I'm the chair of the Alcohol and Other Drug Addiction Advisory Council, and thank you for allowing us to change our name and change the charter. We still have the code to go to remove the stigmatizing language. So everything that she said and the continuous work on the stigma. We continue to see messages coming out from the county, forms and other things that have inappropriate language in it. The charter has been changed, but the code has not. So that is another focus that we would like to continue to do, particularly on forms and surveys and things that we're doing. Get everybody on the same page so we're not stigmatizing people from getting the help that they need. Our focus, one big focus for this year is rebuilding our committee. Right now, our council, we're a council of 16, but we only have 8 seated members right now. So we don't even have quorum to approve minutes. We can't vote on anything. We are waiting for those to be posted. But we are developing a strategy to really fill out that committee. And part of that is doing all of our members doing outreach now. Our wonderful staff liaison, Pam Abramson, created a infographic to put out to ask for interest, and in a couple of days she's already gotten 4 people say that they're interested. And we see that a lot, but what we're doing now is inviting them into the meetings now so they can see what they are, see if they're a fit, see if AODAC is what they think it is, and if they want to continue with it. What happens right now is that they have this long process. We wait for them to be posted. Months later, we get to do interviews and have them seated, and they come to a few meetings and they're like, well, this isn't what I thought it was. And then they're gone. And then we were another year before we can get those seats replaced. So we keep getting down to below even having quorum. So by engaging them, doing more public outreach, having being at more tabling events, sharing what we're doing. A lot of people don't even know that we exist. So our communication, public outreach, and education will be expanded. Each of the committees will be asked to do at least one event. If it's tabling at someone else's event, we're creating one of our own, so that we're raising our awareness of our committee. And I keep saying committee, it's council. But doing that awareness and outreach and bringing people in. There are a lot of people that are interested in this. We just have to get them and us together. And part of that is working more with the council and with the county executive. We have 3 ex officio seats that are not filled, one from the county council, one from the county executive, and one from victim services. So reaching out to other BCCs and finding out which ones, as with MHAC, we're doing that as well with the Mental Health Advisory Committee, which ones we have overlap with. Who can we collaborate with and work more coordinated and less redundancy? So a lot of us are doing the same things, so you're hearing the same things from different places, and it impacts different communities in different ways. So a lot of our focus will be on various audiences across the lifespan and in different demographics, so that we're more focused on where we see the most need. When we saw that spike for our youth in 2022, that was because we were getting reports from partners like police department for their responses, but that doesn't catch everything, right? We only see when they are involved, them or EMS. Someone who gives Narcan to a friend or a family member, we don't know about that one. So efforts like getting our hospitals to give Narcan, getting our schools to give information when they know a student has a substance use disorder or has overdosed in school. They should not go home without Narcan. They should not go home without resources and information, a packet of information. They should not go home not knowing about the recovery and academic program that's available to them. So those kinds of things, making people aware of the resources that we have. It does no good to have them if no one knows how to use them or how to access them. So reconnecting all of those threads and strengthening our council in that way, expanding our outreach and education with those community events, stigma reduction, as I mentioned, in every way, the way we talk. I'm very glad when I hear people even catch themselves. Better not use it at all, but we all grew up hearing these words, right? So we say them sometimes. It's my shtick, and I still do it sometimes. But catching themselves and realizing that, wait, I need to reprogram my language about that. And workforce support for our peers, for our providers, getting screenings done earlier. Not all of this is within, the council being able to say to do that, but that outreach helps with that. If we have the support to be able to reach providers, primary care providers, especially having a forum with CMEs or something with our nurse practitioners, for instance, then we can start to get that word out, do earlier screening, know when there's an issue or a potential issue building before we have a crisis. So the prevention, the diversion when we're already past the prevention window, and the reentry when they have become just as involved or participated in the sequential intercept model development. And we just had a presentation last week at AODAC on that from Sarah Rose. That was great. A lot of people kept hearing about it, but they didn't really know what it was. We went through some of the recommendations. We looked at all of that. I recently participated in a reentry simulation. I want to bring those to Montgomery County. We're incredibly frustrating and eye-opening. And I have been through that on the other side with my son, as you know, but experiencing what it's like to have to navigate when you come out. You've got to have ID, you've got to have a social security card, you got to have a clean urine before you can go to work, you got to have bus tickets to get to all these places. That simulation is really eye-opening and I think could be really beneficial. Eventually, I think that should be in our jails, working with people who are approaching release, so that they can start to realize where those pitfalls are and strategize in their minds. Maybe they can have someone, a family member or a friend, helping them get some of those things in line for when they get out. Maybe we can have a kiosk with MVA inside of our facilities to be able to get their ID. Maybe not a driver's license, there are other requirements for that, but to be able to get an ID. They're fingerprinted in the jail. They know who they are, right? So they can vouch for that. Why can't we make those connections? So that might require having an additional staff member in our facilities that can do, or even roaming, that can do the help with those reentry coordination. We used to have it. My understanding is it kind of faded away, and now we don't really have anybody that's doing it. And I think that's critically important that we set them up for success and not for failure, which is kind of where we are right now. It's a very, very difficult path to navigate. So those are some of the things that we're really focused on doing this year, and I think that's it.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from our representative from the Asian American Health Initiative.
Good morning, honorable council members. And first, I have to say thank Council Member Sayre. I was fortunate this morning to follow her through the express lane to this room. And I wish I could always do that.
Yeah.
More seriously, that we wanted to thank you for all the supports over all the years. And also thank you for the opportunity to share our priority list with you. And more importantly, that we wanted to listen to your guidance and suggestions. And the reason is that you are much higher up on the food chain and then have much broader view of everything. And then talking about the food chain, Asian Americans are definitely at a disadvantage. That 68% of us are first generation foreign-born citizens. And then we don't speak one language, we speak more than 15 different languages. And then 28% of us just have limited English capabilities. And then also proportionately, we are older and more frail. So what does that mean? It means even for the richest and most progressive counties, that we will still have problem of achieving the equity for all, not, or even just, minimizing the disparities. Fortunately, Montgomery County did not get the stellar reputation for nothing. The government, or the county government has the AHI, has the AHI steering committee. We have our boots on the ground and the fingers on the pulse, that we have been following our strategic blueprints, serve as a bridge and a facilitator to channel and build the capacity of the community organizations and help them to devote their efforts to the most needed areas. But CBOs, FBOs, NGOs, they don't just pop out from nowhere or live and growth on nothing. They need loving cares. They need help too. That's where we come from. We come in, and we help them to build their capacity and then help our communities. So, over the years, just for the last 3 fiscal years, with your support, that we have helped 33 unique organizations with 73 very impactful programs that served 26,000 unique, unduplicated individuals with 300,000 and more of the encounters. That has made the Montgomery County a much livable and happier community. But we have a lot more and better things to do. Our priority list is very long. We wish we would not be limited to just 2 priorities, but then we have to make it do. Given the situation, we will say the behavioral health, and then a platform for sharing the information are our top priorities. For building the capacity that we leverage our efforts to serve more people by having a platform that collect, analyze, and sharing the information that related to the AAPI communities, that all the stakeholders can work together and make our effort even more effective and impactful. So, building the capacity with a data platform to address the behavioral health and senior wellness issues are our top 2 priorities. We welcome your comments and the guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all 3 of you. Great start, and appreciate all of your testimony. Had a epiphany as you all were speaking, and this will take some time and work and effort, and this is by no means a formal commitment, but it is worth exploring. We have an extraordinary public information office on the council and an extraordinary public information office on the executive branch, and we have Montgomery County Media, which is also an Emmy Award-winning media organization here locally. I'd love to have an exploratory meeting with them, Ms. Clemens-Johnson, to see how we might be able to work collaboratively to have them work with the boards and commissions on the development of, at a minimum, a promotional piece, no more than a minute, that describes the boards and commissions' work, that goes a little bit over the history and background. It's just so hard to break through right now with messaging because we're all bombarded with just about every message imaginable. And I'm a visual learner myself, and so I think there'd be some value in seeing if we could produce a video that the board and commissions themselves can forward to friends, colleagues, people that may be interested, as another way of potentially engaging our community and letting them, be aware of the great work that we're doing. Just a thought, but I think one we'll want to consider, because it's a continual theme we hear every year. And there are some boards and commissions that, for whatever reason, have a harder time recruiting and retaining members than others, but all face challenges, particularly today. So thank you for all that testimony. And I will start with our Alcohol and Other Drug Addiction Advisory Council. And full disclosure, I am one of those people that need to learn how better and make sure that we're utilizing the right language. And we all have to make that transition together. But it was so important for us to make that policy change in the name, because much more than just the symbolism. This speaks to how, as a society and as a community, we need to think about these issues holistically. So no issue, Ms. Mitchell. I really appreciate you bringing that up, and it's an important one moving forward. I did want to ask, so we are, how is the partnership with the state, in your opinion? So we have the treatment beds and all of the areas of engagement with the state. I think we've made progress, particularly under this administration, but at a high level, I'd be just curious as to your inputs and thoughts and from the council's perspective on our collaboration with the state?
I think we've made great progress. We had great needs, so there was a lot of room for growth there. These areas, mental health and substance use, are things that we didn't talk about. You know, they were the quiet parts, and COVID brought mental health to the fore very quickly, and that conversation changed. It grew a lot. Substance use also spiked. The conversations are still not in the loud part, so they're more often and happening in the right areas, I think, a lot of times, but there's still a lot of room for growth in that. So the contacts that I have at the state level are through my efforts that I do outside of AODAC, but I always sort of wear all of my hats at once in having those conversations. And having all of those hats means that I get to hear all the different pieces and kind of put together a vision for what could work or what might work. I think that with the efforts to get youth services, particularly treatment beds, going in the state, that was tremendous, absolutely needed. And I don't feel like I'm screaming into the void anymore. That said, that's an hour away, right? So there's still a need. And I think there are some other things brewing, and I appreciate that effort. What I would like to see more is AODAC being relied on for our expertise and experiences that we have. We had an array of folks on there, as do most of the boards and committees and commissions. That expertise is not utilized as well as it could be by the county, I think. There are events that happen, there are conversations that happen in this room and outside of here that we find out about after the fact and would have had valuable input on had we known. So that is an issue. That's one of the reasons we'd like to have the representative from the council and from the county executive's office coming to our meeting. We used to be able to testify at the state level when there's legislation put in, and that's not happening anymore. We're not allowed to do that. It was always sent in for review to make sure it was in alignment with the council and the county executive priorities. Despite this body having passed legislation that we specifically could, they now fall back on our original charter, which does not say that that is part of our charge, and we've not been able to do it. Those two factors are contributing a lot to our inability or our struggles to retain members because they feel muted. They feel, frankly, like it is a waste of time. You know, why am I here? What impact am I having? If I can go do this on a second Thursday night of the month instead of something else for 3 hours, then I can have a bigger impact. So those challenges, I think we can easily address and look at how we can better connect and utilize our advisory capacity that we're charged with doing.
I appreciate that. Those are excellent recommendations, and I think long-term the council has an opportunity to look at those charters to see what changes or amendments can be made to better reflect the needs of today. Just a point of personal privilege, Ms. Mitchell, this will be my last time coming before you as chair of this committee. I just want to thank you in particular. So what you have been able to accomplish in turning around an issue facing your family into unbelievable advocacy and work that you're doing in the community is nothing short of extraordinary. You're a humble person, but I just want you to know that I have seen it, we all have seen it, and we all deeply appreciate your commitment on many levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question for now, and this is more broadly, and actually it's a good transition and somewhat serendipitous that you are testifying with our African American Health Program and Asian American Health Initiative, and soon we will be hearing from our Latino Health Initiative, because there's stigma in Black and Brown communities with regards to the subject matter that you all focus on. And we have heard, particularly in our Latino community, and I really want to escalate the work of Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez, who's been doing a lot of work with the state, particularly not just in her district, but across the county. And so I think there's an opportunity for collaboration there that I hope happens, and these incredible all three do phenomenal jobs of reaching out into communities. And I think once you have more boards and commission members, it'll put you in a better position to potentially be able to staff a table or maybe even recruit people that could join the board or commission. But this is more of a comment / broad question to both our African American Health Program and Asian American Health Initiative. We recently received an update, as we do every 6 months, from sitting as the Board of Health by our incredible public health team. And one of the comments that I made during their most recent session earlier this week was that during COVID, what worked really well in particular was paid media, not just hoping for press releases to go out and catch what you can, but all three of our minority health initiatives and program actually aggressively started marketing into the community. And so this is a broad question for both the African American Health Program and Asian American Health Initiative. I assume the answer is yes, but do you think it would be helpful, and how do you think it would be helpful if we were able to invest more in outreach, but in the way of paid media, advertisements, and the like? And I know that the African American Health Program in particular had a paid marketing campaign during COVID, which was quite successful. But I will start with you, Ms. Williams. If you could talk a little bit more about that. And the reason I bring it up is because of all the disorienting mixed messages coming out of our federal government, which are confusing our community on things as important as vaccinations and Tylenol. And so we have to be able to get the correct information out, but again, breaking through all of the noise. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we do have to have trusted sources within the county to push that information. I think one of the people who could help with that is our health officer, who has that level of trust in the community to push out the message, particularly to the African American population, that COVID's still around. RSV is around, influenza is still a thing, and that I think if we have that same person continuously pushing out those that information, same person, they see the same one every time, I think we build that trust in what the county is trying to achieve with vaccinations. The other problem, but there is a problem too, is that it's iffy in terms of vaccination costs. You don't know who is going to, which insurance company is going to pay for this, for the vaccinations, because they are very expensive. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to do some homework first, make sure that people know that they can get the vaccine. It's not going to, cost them an arm and a leg. And I don't know whether there is vaccines for those who don't have insurance. Mm-hmm. So in the county.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Traditionally, that some of our community organizations that they do use the paid medias. However, that from what I know in our community, actually social media is a lot more popular. There are a lot of unique social medias for unique ethnic groups. And then I personally would think that more importantly is probably go back 1 or 2 steps in terms of the actual marketing efforts, marketing skills, and build the capacities. Mm-hmm. And then they will have a way of reaching out. And that's probably more effective from my point of view, and especially in this day of age of technology, AIs. And so I personally would think that if we devote some efforts helping, from my perspective, our community organizations, if they can have better more effective websites that they can push the right and the correct information, and the people trust that website, they can just reach out. And then on the other side is that with that reaching out and the reaching in, will create a much stronger bond in terms of different networks. Okay, there's the individual social networks, and then if we bond all the social network together, it will organically, exponentially grow. So that would be, one of my suggestions, at least for all community organizations.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to turn to colleagues. We've been going back and forth with each panel this time. It's Councilmember Lutke up first, followed by Councilmember Sales.
I want to first thank all three of you for noting the importance, and I know we, especially the AAHP and AAPI groups, we spoke about behavioral health when I've most recently met with you, and the ways to help break down those barriers toward accepting and freely speaking about those issues. So thank you for that. For the AAHP program, I wanted to ask about, I noticed I've seen recently our Medical Reserve Corps doing signups for nurses to give, so I'm not a health, I can't give people vaccines, but I am a member of that volunteer corps for other things. I can do other things, right? Other duties as assigned. But they are running different clinics right now. So you may want to connect to find out, for those who may not have insurance, where they might be able to go. And then for the main insurance providers, like the big health insurance companies in the area, I know at least one pharmacy at CVS you just provide your insurance information. There's no charge at the and they do have the vaccines available. So to the extent that can help anyone right now, as the temperatures are dropping and we're getting into all the sneezing season, go ahead and check with them, and that can start getting the ball rolling for people to get access. And Laura, I echo the chair's sentiments, and I have been so blessed over the years that I've been in public service, both at the state and locally, to have worked with individuals who have had deep, stressful, traumatic things happen in their personal lives, with family members, with themselves, with episodes of mass violence. And I feel honored to have worked with them and collaborated with them, and to be able to call them friends, because they're wonderful people who go out into the world and do excellent things, despite the tragedies that they have experienced. And it sounded like you have a council position open on your board. Is that true? Well, I'm certainly available to the extent that you need that. And I know during my time serving at the state on the Youth and Family Subcommittee of the Governor's Commission on Mental and Behavioral Health, that it was screaming into the void, talking about the need for beds for children, and for corollary services and counseling for families in order to best be able to support their family members when they return home after inpatient care. So I'm thankful that there was some degree of listening and something has happened, but we have a far long way to go in that regard. I want to thank you for highlighting the sequential intercept model and the work that's being done there. I am still working on the state level with that, as well as here locally. So I work on the group that the Maryland Judiciary and the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy has convened to help shore things up across the state. And I do want to note that thank you for the suggestion about the reentry coordinator. And we have some of our population who goes into our Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation until sentencing, and then they transfer to state facilities. For those for whom they are able to serve their entire time at DOCR, it's a different process, right? And, I know WorkSource Montgomery is inside meeting with folks and supporting them and helping them. And we have the training programs in there too. And I feel lucky I've been able to teach in that training program. And I loved it. But I think that is really critical because we want positive outcomes, and you can't just send someone out the door and go, good luck to you, right? And sometimes when they have had all the supports that they've had inside DOCR in particular, because we do actually do a pretty good job there, then they don't have that outside. So how can we help better establish a positive peer network for them to go back to, as opposed to going back out and then having conflict with peers who they may not be seeing eye to eye with anymore because they have grown, changed, and that critical rehabilitation part of the process. So that is something I will definitely focus on. And then thank you for uplifting the need for our older population and the ways that we might need to support those who might be more frail in the community. I was wondering if you could speak to that in terms of, I know you do a lot of work with other organizations that because there is so much diversity just within your one umbrella organization. Can you speak to what you've seen be effective the most in supporting the older population in the AAPI community?
Well, it's a tough question to be answered. But thank you for the question. When we talk about the senior wellness, we talk about their health, their independencies, and then their activeness. If they stay home and then domain, or they go out and then having activities, and then obviously the last aspect of their well-being, being the body, mind, and soul, is happiness, right?
Yes.
And then for different people with a different physical condition, it's very hard to just pin down to one or two issues. We literally have to look at the whole spectrum of the issues and address them in a targeted way. So that becomes very tough to address. But then on the other hand is that if we think of it that, we look from the health point of view, how do we provide a better health maintenance and then the preventiveness of the activities, that may and keep people active.
Right,
okay? And that may make them healthier and then less problem from physical point of view and the mental point of view.
Right.
And then so I would say I'm part of a CCACC, and we have a kind of a more holistic approach.
Right.
In other words, that we have clinic, and then we take care of them from the health point of view, and then we have activities, and then draw them in, or go out, and then keep them moving off the balance.
Yeah.
And then keep them, if they off the balance, they will have to be thinking.
Right.
And that keeps them mentally active and physically active. And then so a lot of the programs, activities that suit their need. And then most important thing is the loving and caring minds. And then so earlier I said we leverage, the reason is because we also have a lot of volunteers, but then even volunteers need to be organized. Okay, so from my point of view is that this kind of thing is, in a way, is very hard for big government, county, to do it, but then it'll be easier for our communities, for the community organizations to do that in a targeted way. Actually, earlier that Councilmember Abno mentioned about the paid medias. You know, for our community, I'm sorry, a lot of ethnic groups, there's no media to be paid to do that. And then that's why earlier I mentioned about, you know, building the website for each one of those groups. And then so then we establish a kind of a media by themselves. And then that doesn't have to be maintained in a higher cost in terms of, because paid medias, you pay, you get media, and you don't pay, you stop.
Right.
But website, once you build it, it will take a lot less effort to maintain it. Okay, and then the volunteer may come in and then may even do it for free.
Sure.
And then so, so just that website can serve as a vehicle to serve the seniors better.
So how, and you, thank you for that. And I agree, because we don't have, you know, we have some media in other languages. We don't have a lot of variety in the area to even choose from, outside certain communities. But you mentioned that they speak 15 different languages. So how would you propose the website to be maintained to deal with that variety of languages?
Well, you have the AHI. They can help. In the fact is that, you know, we keep talking about the capacity building. We'll not just say it. It's important, because that we can do it for everybody. But then if we train them, give them the skill, they can do it for themselves. Each one of our, you know, community organizations, they can build their own website and make it better, make it more effective. And then they can also, in a way, I would say, as the kind of a liaison of the county media organizations or you know, departments. You know, so, you know, county media and public information center can just, you know, send out the information to the individual community organizations, and then they in turn
would translate
into their own language, and also they can bring them back and send them back to the county's website.
Right.
And then so you have both ways of communication and exchanges.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone on the panel. I too am glad that this group has assembled at the start of the panel. As Councilmember Albornoz mentioned, when we had our biennial report earlier this week, mental health for you know, our residents across the demographics, coupled with, you know, our, let me make sure I get with our substance use recovery efforts, presents even bigger challenges for us to overcome. But I think it also presents an opportunity for more recruitment across our diverse communities to contribute to the discussions that are impacting all of our communities. You know, with our great leader here leaving us for the rec department, you know, there's an opportunity for us to even have, you know, a health fest, utilizing our recreation centers, our senior centers. You talk about our seniors that are, you know, sick and shut in and feeling isolated. And, you know, we have all these incredible resources. But while I see, you know, one affinity group at this event or that event, to get all of our health advocates under one roof and to talk about all of the programs you're doing and having a consistent voice, sharing information with the community, whether it's paid. Usually the nonprofits benefit from, free airtime on some of the channels during certain hours, even with iHeartRadio. And, I used to do the marketing for the National Institutes of Health. And because it was a health program, and if we were doing something in the community, we could couple it with that program and get like a 30-second spot to raise awareness about an issue or about a resource. And so while I am conscious about the rising needs, I'm excited about the opportunities. And with the impact of federal policies and funding across all of our groups, especially our minority health programs, the Restoration Center is going to see federal impacts, our HIV program, potentially access to Medicare and Medicaid benefits, SNAP. All of these resources present opportunities for us to seriously think about how we're going to come together and, encourage activity and community, and also share information between the groups and communication strategies. As Councilmember Lutke mentioned, the AAHI and the multiple, languages that are spoken across the community, across the Asian diaspora. Would you be willing to have your organization as the landing page for all of those other organizations? I know you provide, grants to some of your nonprofits. Would you be willing to host those links to their pages? Because I know you already have some of the organizations connected, but how are we reaching all 15 and making sure that everyone's accessing the information?
Personally, I can't make anybody to do anything, but but on the other hand is that I can't promise, but then I would say it probably won't be a problem, and then I'll even willing to train up my arm and then do some arm twisting, but then I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. I just think it's a great opportunity to convene all the groups, and then thinking about how our health related boards, committees, and commissions can come together to devise this strategic plan, this communication plan, and potentially an annual event to culminate all of the great work that's happening. We don't want to have the federal government tell our narrative or overshadow the great work we're doing here on the ground. And so I would love to help, ensure that we can get everyone together and raise awareness.
Yes, thank you very much. I would maybe potentially add one more thing, is that one thing probably immediately that we can do for improve the senior awareness is probably a little bit more funding on the senior nutrition programs, because we're seeing the stress there, and then some of our community organizations are running out, before the end of the fiscal year, end up not having the service for 2 or 3 months, and then that's probably not going to help much. But on the other hand, it may not take much to address that issues. Thank you.
I went to one of our senior centers in Gaithersburg to welcome Meals on Wheels to one of the activity centers. So we have the Office of Food Systems Resilience coming, and it'll be a good opportunity to find out how they are working with our minority health programs to raise awareness, especially among our senior populations. But thank you for all the work you're doing, the In It to Win It campaign for mental health, and you wanted to share something.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to share, we've talked a lot about vaccines and access to real information about our health, and particularly for our aging populations, but across the span. And one thing that we created early on in COVID with MCC PTA was called VaxFacts. And what we did was had Zoom meetings, and sorry for the plug. We had physicians in various languages who would come on our Zoom, share the basic information, factual information, and then take questions. So people could come in and ask their specific questions about whether it was right for them and their family, given their conditions, with that physician. They could go in a breakout room and ask those questions. And the county facilitated that with the language services and with our with the translations and closed captions and all of that. It was wonderful. We had a lot of participation in that. A lot of people got real information in real time, and they were able to ask their questions without having to find transportation to a doctor's appointment, get a doctor's appointment, and do all of that and pay a copay to ask a simple question about whether my child should get this because of this condition or that circumstance. So that's something that we could consider looking at for with our health officer, with our community physicians who speak multiple languages. And sometimes we did them in breakout rooms. So you might have French in one and English in another and Spanish in another. And who knows? We had across the board. We got as many as we could.
That's a great point. Yes. That's a great point. Well, thank you all so much. Yes. Councilmember Sales, were you done?
Yes,
okay.
I'm done.
Thank you so much.
10 seconds for the low-cost, high-impact proposition. That is that talking about the media, and then if the county can help community organizations with their Zoom subscription, that will help them tremendously because they can deliver the programs, especially for the seniors at home, and with a very low cost. But then that can be tremendous of a services to everybody.
Well, it's funny you end on that, Dr. Huang. You had the best screensaver of any Zoom I had seen, so appreciate you, my friend. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your leadership and commitment and dedication. We will now hear from our next panel, and we will be hearing from our Commission on Childcare, our Commission on Health, and I believe the Interagency Commission on Homelessness. Is that right, Ms. Clements-Johnson? Yes, perfect. And we will speed things up through this panel because we still have to get through a number more today. But thank you all so much for being here. So we will begin with our Commission on Childcare, who is joining us virtually.
Correct. Sorry, my apologies. Hi, good morning. My name is Elka Forbes. I am the co-chair for the Commission of Childcare. And we are here to present our priorities for this coming year. We have so from I could say from a little bit prior to COVID, and COVID has really emphasized or kind of exclamated the issue of the workforce in childcare. And of course, a noticeable amount of childcare providers or teachers in the industry have left the field. And this has been an ongoing challenge that the childcare community has faced. And since COVID, it's actually gotten a lot, more stressful for the community as well. So we want to continue to focus our work and our priorities on the workforce in childcare, and to help, of course, the accessibility for families to go back to work in person, and for the community of the industry of childcare to grow at the same time. So given that, would like to read what our first priority is. To help address ongoing challenges, the recruitment and retention of the commission would continue to examine the barriers impacting early years, the early childhood and education workforce. The effort builds on the commission's work in FY24 and FY25, which laid out a strong foundation of understanding workforce needs and elevating the voices of early educators. So therefore, continuing for FY26 and building that momentum, the commission will continue to research this issue and gather data through ongoing conversations with educators, providers, and community partners. These efforts will inform equity centered recommendations designed to support and strengthen early care and education systems. And that is our first priority.
Right. Our second priority, hi, my name is Melissa Jordan, and I'm the other co-chair for the Commission on Child Care. So in fiscal year 24 and 25, the Commission hosted a virtual forum with early care and educators, providers, and leaders in the District of Columbia, Northern Virginia, and multiple counties in Maryland. During that same period, the Commission also conducted interviews with early child care educators and leaders from other states to better understand the workforce challenges and highlight innovative solution-focused strategies from the field. So our second priority in fiscal year 26 is for the Commission plans to present these recommendations to both Montgomery Moving Forward and the Children's Opportunity Alliance, coordinating and aligning its work with broader systems level efforts to address workforce challenges in the early childhood care. So those are our two priorities for this coming year. But as I heard mentioned earlier, we are also focusing a shortage of commission members on our board. And we are having trouble getting the word out. Elka, can you talk to that a little bit more?
Sure. We're currently, as Melissa said, in a shortage on our board. Right now, we are at half. We need 8 more members for the commission to be able to approve minutes. We still continue our work and meet monthly to focus on the efforts as we discussed, but struggle with members, recruiting members when we're able to recruit them. But the plan is to still obviously continue with the meetings and do recruitment as well.
Thank you both very much for sharing those priorities and expressing that thought and concern. We'll follow up with questions in a moment or two. Next, we will be hearing from a representative from our Commission on Health.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. My name is Arthur Somerville. I'm the chair of the Commission on Health. And I'll read a statement and kind of have some comments afterwards from our commission. As the Commission of Health strives to advance health access across Montgomery County, our strategic focus will be to address the social determinants of health, better known as SDOH, through 3 interconnected priorities, 1 being behavioral wellness, 2, food and nutrition, 3, physical activity. We believe these 3 pillars are the baseline for preventative health, controlling chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension, and reducing hospitalization and ER utilization in Montgomery County. These priorities are deeply interlinked. Progress in one often supports gains in others. The Commission on Health is committed to identifying and leveraging these overlaps. A core principle of the application is the application of intersectionality or intersectional lens from this, and acknowledging that the many residents encounter multiple compounding barriers to health, such as those related to income, minority status, language, and rural residents, for example, Poolsville. Moving forward, we urge the council to support coordinated initiatives that are innovative and evidence-based, including but not limited to, and these are just examples, programs for residents with chronic medical conditions that address affordable health care, transportation, nutritious foods, safe housing, behavioral health resources, recognizing the wide array of social and economic factors affecting health management, school-based initiative integrating nutrition support, physical activity, and behavioral health, programs linking nutritional education and behavioral health services for stress reduction, physical activity deployment that fosters social connectivity and social cohesion and builds emotional resilience within the community. We think that really helps with mental health and just the broader effect of issues in the community. Community events that combine access to healthy foods, opportunities for active living, and wellness support. And you see all these examples also really relate to interlecting these things together and utilizing the resources we have. We talked earlier with Dr. Bridges about, how to do more or less in our earlier conversation. I think these comments really look at that, at what the limited resources we have right now, how we can really be more efficient and more effective to move our county forward. By pursuing cross-disciplinary collaboration throughout the lifespan, the Commission will be better equipped to serve the complex health needs of our communities, our residents. Our shared goals to develop solutions that not only encourage individual well-being, but also confront and dismantle systematic barriers, promoting equity for all people in Montgomery County. Thanks for your time. And just to buttress a little bit our statement, we really want to push forward the most notion of value-based care and really innovative things that we can do within Montgomery County to help what we have going on. We have a great, highly ranked county as far as health and public health, but we think we have a long way to go, and we can really be innovative as far as leading the way on what we can do, especially right now, what we have happening within the federal government. So how can we be more innovative? How can we do more or less? How can we really be intersectional with our mentality and working through all the different groups, even that presented earlier today, on addressing these issues? You heard mental health being discussed many times. You heard chronic disease being discussed also. We think there's a lot to do with, to address with chronic disease like diabetes and hypertension, especially with, in the community, we have a lot of people who have like diabetic limb amputation that happens on a regular basis that we don't really see as a big issue. And there's things that we can do to address these things early on and more effectively. And also just behavioral health and mental health. We think there's a lot of intersectionality in that area with community cohesion and really just being more intentional and innovative on how we apply different resources to address these issues, including food, including physical activity. These links are very apparent. And lastly, I think we just also want to look at, with the limited resources that we do have and the challenges we have now coming in the next couple of weeks and even for the foreseeable future, how can we be really innovative as looking at our resources that we do have and resources we can maybe get through possibly private-public partnerships or whatever are out there to really be innovative to get more resources within the community to buttress what we need to accomplish. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. We'll get back to questions. Next, we're going to hear from the Interagency Commission on Homelessness. Chief Hung, welcome.
Thank you. Apologies. Our vice chair had a last minute conflict, and so I will read the statement they prepared.
Great.
On their behalf. Okay. And thank you so much for your ongoing support. I know that you are very familiar with our work as you reach out to me and we talk about the many, many residents in our community that are impacted by homelessness. The Homeless Continuum of Care significantly expanded services during the pandemic through federal COVID-era funding. However, as these funds have expired, the economic strain on households persists, while the COC's capacity to respond has declined. Rising rents and inflation continue to push residents, especially families, to the brink, forcing impossible choices between paying for food and housing. As a result, many households are falling behind on rent, facing eviction, and entering homelessness. The 2025 point-in-time count conducted on January 29th revealed a 32% overall increase in homelessness compared to 2024. Family homelessness nearly doubled, rising 98% to 204 households with children. While adult-only households experienced a 10% increase to 796 individuals. Over the 2024 calendar year, 2,112 adults experienced homelessness, 32% more than in 2023, highlighting that the crisis extends far beyond a single night's count. Accordingly, with rising homelessness in our county, the COC must prioritize prevention, specifically eviction prevention and diversion, to stop households from falling into homelessness. Preventing eviction is not only more cost-effective than sheltering households, but also spares them the trauma and long-term disruption caused by homelessness. In addition, the Montgomery County Homelessness Response System must expand investments in prevention, strengthen case management for families experiencing homelessness, and scale evidence-based housing interventions such as rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing and shallow subsidies. Therefore, the ICH policy priorities include increased diversion and prevention funding to stop evictions and divert households from entering shelters, helping them quickly secure permanent housing. Expand eviction prevention resources to assist households with large rental arrears, an effective and humane alternative to costly shelter placements and trauma of homelessness. Increase funding to the rental assistance program to provide shallow subsidies for residents with disabilities and older adults on fixed incomes. Restore and expand funding for rapid rehousing and SHARP programs for individuals to replace expired COVID-era funding. Increase locally funded housing initiative program resources to add more permanent supportive housing slots for vulnerable individuals not covered by federal or state funding. And we are all aware that our federal funding for these programs is at risk now more than ever. Develop a homeless preference policy within the Housing Opportunities Commission to prioritize households experiencing homelessness for federal housing choice vouchers. Expand case management capacity for families experiencing homelessness to match the current demand for services. Increase funding for the Move Up initiative, enabling low-income households to transition from permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing with ongoing vouchers, freeing capacity for others exiting homelessness. Advocate for the Housing Opportunities Commission to align with the Housing Justice Act in using equitable standards for applicants with criminal records because the fair housing enforcement processes are complex and inaccessible for many residents. The county COC must strengthen its role in investigating and enforcing fair housing laws. Increasing the Landlord Risk Mitigation Fund budget to attract and retain more landlords willing to lease to households exiting homelessness. The ICH strongly believe that the above-mentioned priority recommendations collectively strengthen the COC's ability to prevent homelessness, expand access to housing, and build a more equitable and resilient housing system for Montgomery County residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Hong, and we greatly appreciate everyone's efforts. Just a couple of points and then turn it over to colleagues, and we'll go to Councilmember Sales first. So with regards to the Commission on Health, thank you all so much for your continued dedication. I want to uplift an initiative that I think connects a couple of dots that you mentioned. We launched the Food as Medicine initiative a couple of years ago. And I think that there's an opportunity there to work with our public health providers and be a bridge between them and our Office of Food System Resilience. They already have wonderful collaboration and partnerships, but I think that you all could be a great conduit in uplifting that program and taking it to a larger scale. That will be particularly important over the coming months as SNAP benefits and other federal programs and services are curtailed and cut back. And so that would be worth exploring. I don't know if you're familiar with the initiative or the program, and just would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the program in Montgomery County. I've heard of it, but I'm not very familiar with it. I'm familiar with what's happening in Prince George's County, but not necessarily in this vein as far as food medicine in Montgomery County. But
so I think a good thing would be to connect you to our Office of Food System Resilience and encourage them to come and brief you all on that and other food-related initiatives that we're doing in the county because it's so connected to the work that you all are focusing on and uplifting. Mm-hmm. And then our council president this year made behavioral health her top policy priority. and she's done a fabulous job convening public-private nonprofit organizations in a way that's been very strategic and fruitful. But we will obviously want to continue that work beyond this year, which I know she's fully committed to. That could be another area of crossover and partnership that I encourage you all to follow up with our council president on, Councilmember Stewart, because there could be a lot there. With regards to our Commission on Child Care, thank you all for your leadership and dedication. It's a continued theme of recruitment and retention of members, and so and what I'd like to propose, in addition to the shooting from the hip idea that I had on connecting, with potential media, is I do think, Ms. Clemens Johnson, we should look and prioritize those boards and commissions that have had more challenges than others in recruiting and retaining methods, and seeing what other strategies we might be able to utilize to assist them and the executive branch in recruiting folks. And Chief Hong, we're going to have many more sessions in the coming weeks and months with you and your remarkable team. I also want to acknowledge Beth Schuman in my office is our liaison and representative from the council, and I know she's on all those Zoom calls and all those meetings, and so it's important connection between the executive and legislative branches as we're dealing with very complex issues. With that, I will yield to Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our presenters. The recurring theme of doing more with less has become more and more apparent with all of these cuts, not just at the federal level, but also at the state, and just bracing for these changes is becoming more and more apparent how we prepare. It's bringing me back to COVID days and how we had to ramp up services. This isn't the first time that we heard about the point-in-time count numbers and the 30% increase in homelessness. We just heard from planning that multifamily housing is down for the last 3 quarters. We haven't received any new applications. And now with HUD seeing layoffs, CDBG funding on hold and impacted, you made recommendations about the Fair Housing Act and ways that we can have a voice in, the in any other policy recommendations, because I know with the Housing Justice Act that the county has worked on to raise enforcement opportunities. I know that the positions that you requested were not funded. Did you have any recommendations about how that would be helpful in supporting those efforts of enforcement and keeping more people housed?
Thank you for that question. And in general, fair housing enforcement at the federal level is now also at risk, as you've surely read. And so for us, that definitely gives us pause, because we need to do more enforcement, not less. I am really thankful for the partnership with the Office of Human Rights, as well as the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. I believe I shared in FY25 in the budget session that we had commenced doing fair housing testing, and that did yield significant findings, actually, that there continues to be housing discrimination in our county. Most of what we observed was source of income discrimination, and we partnered then with the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights to investigate cases, and they actually did resolve those cases. So we are doing our work behind the scenes and also working to recruit more landlords to work with us. So it's a fine line between investigating, enforcing, but also asking our landlords to work with us in housing the many households who are attempting to exit homelessness with the various types of support we have. So that work must happen, and I'm very thankful for the partnerships across the county that it has started, and we have to continue to do it. Regardless of what priorities our federal government chooses, we will continue. So I appreciate your support and interest in our fair housing enforcement.
Of course. And, I know with the courts after COVID, there's been a bottleneck in processing the landlord-tenant issues. I believe there's only one day that they are focused on addressing these concerns. And so it presents another opportunity for us to advocate for increased funding for more judges in our court system to address those issues. So we'll be following up. Also, with regards to the child care scholarship program in Maryland, I know that there's been a freeze, a temporary enrollment freeze for scholarships at the state level. I know that with the layoffs from the federal workforce, we're probably seeing a decrease in enrollment. Are you seeing a decrease in enrollment consistent, or are you seeing a longer wait list for scholarships and availability of seats for childhood education?
That's not what we've necessarily seen. I believe there's still more of a wait list that's growing because of the freeze. But there hasn't been any data currently shared that children are not low enrollment in childcare due to that. But yeah, we haven't, but I do believe that there's still a growth on the wait list.
Okay, good. So another opportunity to advocate for more seats and also the dollars to accompany it at the state level to see the possibility of getting more students into childcare. And again, the Commission on Health, an opportunity for cross collaboration with our minority health programs. And so would love to talk with you about how we can convene broader discussions to address the issues that so many of our groups are bringing up today. And then I can follow up with some of the priorities that you mentioned at the end of our last check-in, just to learn more progress with regards to the health clinic manager to standardize clinic operations, because we may see an increase in or resurgence of visits to our clinics. And then any progress that you've made with the Babies Born Healthy program that you mentioned at the last meeting, and then also reallocating mental health and substance use funding toward outcome-based programs. Any updates that you want to speak to?
I'll speak to the updates on the mobile clinic programs. I think, there was a big dedication at Harvest International Church,
Yes,
which was
we were
great.
there.
Dr. Pastor Johnston, I forget, but I think a lot of great work is happening within the county around that. And back to your statement about going back to the pre-COVID days or the COVID days, I think there's a lot of lessons we learned from that, as far as you doing more with less and using resources more effectively, that we can take now and move forward with in more efficient ways. And that is one that we really want to keep supporting. But no major updates, but we're following what's happening and how those recommendations are being implemented and used going forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. First, for Commission on Child Care, thank you for all that you are doing. This is a issue near and dear to me, and I'm actually speaking on a book discussion and roundtable on this very topic tomorrow. So, there's a cluster of things all happening at once, and also we've learned a lot of lessons from the past in that the difference between what we thought of as what was needed for our youngest residents versus what we know will give them success moving forward. And so I really appreciate everyone's attention on that issue and discernment on making sure we can do our very best to expand access for our youngest residents and to make sure they're getting adequate education. And when I say education, of course, I mean through play, through creative expression, through choice, not in the 1980 way when I hit kindergarten. That was a very different time, and thank heavens we have new ways of doing things. So for the Commission on Health, as you were talking, and you were talking about the blending of multiple things that are all interconnected, right? Nutrition and stress management and behavioral health.
Yep. And
I'm sitting here thinking about, let me go back to my time as a student myself. Back in the 80s, when they told you something was bad, I was a kid and you'd go, really? Is it really? Right? And it never worked in that way. But what did work and what was fascinating was thinking about the science behind it all and wondering if there's opportunity for us, particularly, not just with adults, but with our younger folks, of when we do these events like Pastor Johnston hosted, focusing them more in the sort of STEM learning realm, because you're still taking it in. You're just taking it in from a different way.
Love it.
And I feel like that sinks in a lot better and a lot differently. And you don't feel like it's coming at you in a heavy topic kind of way. It's just chemistry and it's biology and it's all the things happening together. So would love to chat with you more about that at some point, but thank you for focusing on the intersectionality of all of those things, because it's critically important to positive health outcomes.
Yeah, I would say to that, I grew up in Montgomery County. I'm a STEM guy myself as far as education in college. But I would add to that STEM and put STEAM in there.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed the arts and STEM in high school, especially growing up in Montgomery County from Watkins Mill Elementary to MV and then to Watkins Mill High School. A big part of that for my upbringing was playing music and playing, and that part of it. But I do think we need to make the STEM and STEAM more engaging for kids and just make it fun. Why make it so,
Well, you're speaking to me because I'm an artsy soul, and I have 3 kids at Blake.
Okay.
And let's see, we got jazz band covered, dance company, symphonic band, and orchestra.
Love it.
Yeah. And one never knows when I'm going to sing at something, but it is really important. And one of my children who's applying to colleges now is looking at psychology and music. And that intersectionality. So, and how does it affect mood and what does it do? Or how it has been used over time to help cope. Right. So a lot of great things there, 100% with you on that. And go Watkins Mill. Go District 7. And thank you, Director Hong, for your presentation and ongoing efforts in very challenging times. I know I'm a big fan of the SHARP program, and find that it's been highly effective. One of the things that I wondered as you went through the list of different, priorities and how we're managing all of this is in our eviction prevention work and space, and particularly, and we've talked about this before, sometimes the arrears are so much, there's nothing we can do. But are we assessing at that time in any way, shape, or form, in conjunction with other parts of DHHS, if perhaps some of those folks who have accumulated massive arrears, where our regular eviction program isn't going to be able to help with that, but that they have underlying issues or concerns that may make them more appropriate for permanent supportive housing? And I know you highlighted the need to have more permanent supportive housing. I agree 100%. I know the wait list is rather long. but, is there any sort of, again, cross-sectional discernment there about how to solve that problem with a different piece of the eviction prevention and stabilization of housing program?
Yeah, I appreciate so much that you always acknowledge the connection to our behavioral health system. And sometimes when people need more support than just financial assistance or short-term case management, we need to continue to ensure the lines of communication between the homeless response system and the behavioral health system are strong. So yes, I would say that typically when we recognize that one of the primary issues related to someone repeatedly being at risk of homelessness, that we can and would make the connection to our behavioral health system, because our wonderful behavioral health partners in the community have programs. They're not funded through HUD necessarily,
Right.
but that they would have supportive housing programs, psychiatric rehabilitation programs that offer both the intensive behavioral health services as well as the housing. And so we work on making that connection through both the behavioral health and crisis services, but also the local behavioral health authority that monitors those programs. So yes, that's absolutely necessary. It does happen, but I can't say that's mostly what we see. We really are seeing so much of the family homelessness right now. But again, that partnership must be strong. And Chief Martin and I think we probably collaborate the most between the chiefs at HHS, and I'm very thankful for her partnership.
Yes, and I am thankful for her as well, and for Sarah Rose and all of her tremendous work. So it's great when I get to see people out in the community in wearing your non-work hat, but inevitably we always end up talking about work, even when we see each other when we're just out there being moms.
Right, exactly.
But I appreciate that the passion never stops, right? So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate your leadership and dedication. I think what we'll do is we have 4 more boards and commissions left, but why don't we do 2 at a time to give them an appropriate amount of time. So we'll bring up our Latino Health Initiative, followed by our Mental Health Advisory Committee. We do have a hard stop around 11 a.m. today, but we got plenty of time. Hello, Mr. Uriburu. It's good to see you. And we will start with our Latino Health Initiative.
Good morning, Chairman Albornoz, Councilmember Luque, and Councilmember Siles. It's an honor to be here with my colleagues Marcela Campoli and Henry Montes here on the back, the co-chairs of the Latino Health Steering Committee. And I want to start by echoing many of almost all the testimonies from my prior colleagues from board, committees, commissions. The Latino Health Steering Committee thought long and hard about our 2 priorities, but there were so many that we decided to narrow it to 1. That's broad. In the past 4 months or so, we have witnessed a huge deepening of the needs of the constituents that we serve, affecting all social determinants, and at the same time, individuals who used to not need services from the county or from others, becoming part of the ranks of those who do need those services. The changes have been of seismic proportions. We're particularly concerned about the perfect storm formed by a shrinking economy, particularly on the service economy where the majority of our families work. And this not only affects the Latino community, it affects many communities, particularly the poor in Montgomery County. So the shrinking of the service economy with immigration and all that entails. We used to qualify families with Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 needs. tier 3, meaning families who needed the most services. And those families used to come, far and in between. Families without needs are becoming the norm. And those changes have occurred in the past 3 to 4 months. And we believe that is the tip of the iceberg. That's why we made a policy and a budget request to focus on the safety net services of the county, affecting, again, the most poor. The status quo is not working. I had the honor of working with 15, 20 other nonprofit leaders who have also seen this, and they sent a letter to the county executive as a result. It's also an honor and a pleasure working with Dr. Bridgers and his staff, because they also see the same. And speaking this morning, the current capacity of the system to meet the needs of these families is inadequate. And as the crisis deepens, more funding will be needed, particularly for all these services. And I'm talking about health, mental health, housing, with the caveat that we're talking about informal housing more than formal housing, access, food, everything. So we could substance use, everything that was discussed this morning, and probably a little more. The other thing that is really important is that while there are programs that really are responding to these needs, we need to become creative and be more flexible if we are to address them properly. The status quo will not solve this crisis. It was a pleasure speaking with Dr. Bridgers early this morning, and we agree that we need to work differently. We just don't have capacity, and we need to be creative in order to be able to effectively meet the needs of these families. And we're talking about thousands of families. And again, this is not just a Latino issue, it's an issue of poverty. And many families, unfortunately, falling into poverty. The Latino Health Steering Committee has always worked in partnership with HHS and with the County Council's HHS Committee. We will rely heavily on you to transmit these needs to your colleagues at the Council, because when the budget comes, we know that the last time that we had a crisis similar to this in scope and impact was during COVID, but we had millions and millions of dollars from the federal government to support us. Right now we have a shrinking budget, and no one's coming to the rescue. So we really need to think differently as to how we tackle all these crises. We look forward to working with you and with Dr. Bridgers and his staff, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we will hear from the representative from our Mental Health Advisory Committee.
Yes, good morning. My name is Libby Nealis, and I'm the chair of the Mental Health Advisory Committee. We're so grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you, Chairman Albornoz, Councilmember Lukey, Councilmember Sales. We know that the county has been focusing on mental and behavioral health much more, and we greatly appreciate that. We know that our county continues to make huge improvements in our ability to provide services in our schools and communities. We're so grateful that Maryland has finally approved the expansion of Medicaid reimbursement for school-based behavioral health services, and that our county is able to draw down some of those dollars. We're also grateful for the partnership that we have with HHS and our local behavioral health authority. Special recognition to Monica Martin, Sarah Rose, Samar Khalif, and Camilla George, with whom we confer on a monthly basis and receive regular updates about progress and changes, and review of the local behavioral health authority's strategic plans and updates on those services. We're especially proud of the county's expanded mobile crisis teams, up to 7 now, and the crisis stabilization rooms, a mobile health unit to provide basic health and mental health screenings to different sites all over the county. The Crisis Center has also recently begun billing Medicaid and receiving reimbursement for more of its services. So we recognize the county's commitment to building this coordinated crisis system of care, and through our coordinated system of crisis care work group. We want to be sure we preserve and focus resources to maintain this momentum and continue to build upon the great work we're doing. Of course, among our greatest concerns are the continued budget cuts and continued threats to Medicaid at the federal level that we know will have a serious impact on our state and county mental health programs and services. We understand the current fiscal climate requires us to accept certain funding limitations, and we know that these continued threats will require hard choices, but may also represent some opportunities for growth. You've heard a lot of examples about some ideas and collaborative opportunities. We anticipate that there'll be discussions, perhaps even task forces, to review these policy changes and threats, and we are offering our assistance and support. We are going to ask to be more directly involved. We're deeply concerned that our most vulnerable populations, as you've been hearing about, may be the hardest hit by the federal changes to the Medicaid program, and we want to protect these populations to the greatest extent possible. So we seek to be your partners among our other commissions and councils to preserve this great work. We hope to preserve the safety nets and minimize the negative impacts that we know are going to be hitting our immigrant families. Particularly the cuts and work requirements will disproportionately affect our families and youngest children, individuals with disabilities, and especially those with mental and behavioral health disorders. Medicaid is not typically understood as the most effective anti-poverty program that we have in Maryland. And our testimony includes a fact sheet detailing how the proposed cuts may impact Marylanders, and I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that as well. Again, as our other commissions have brought up, I would like to bring up our workforce shortages. We remain very concerned about the ongoing shortages, as we've heard, in not just in childcare and teaching, but in our mental health and behavioral health workforce. How will the targeted cuts affect the providers who are working with the immigrant populations and to those vulnerable individuals? And of course, this is all exacerbated by the stress of our current political system and disrupted democracy, as we know, affecting all of the social determinants, as we've heard. So, given these cuts, we urge our county leaders to build upon the strengths of our nonprofit community organizations, of which Montgomery County is fortunate to be so rich in, including the networks of our peer support staff, to preserve and maximize what we have established. We highlight again our peer support. SAMHSA has put together a brief on the peer support networks and the adult peer-led community organizations funded by DHHS and our crisis services to continue to offer training and lead in national and state certification. So we support, again, a continuation of our peer support networks and highlighting those. We also know that Maryland Department of Health has lifted the moratorium on new behavioral health providers in certain rural areas in Maryland, but has extended the temporary pause in Montgomery County. So again, the Mental Health Advisory Committee is willing to lend our advocacy through any appropriate means to ensure that the county has the number of providers to meet the needs of our community, continuing to ensure quality and compliance. So again, the peer support workforce is an essential component of our service delivery for the mental and co-occurring disorders. Peers can increase client activation and sustained engagement, and as again, reduce stigma, which you've also heard about this morning, which we need to address. Another priority, as you've heard just recently and here today, housing and homelessness. You've already heard the statistics from Chief Hong about the crisis, about our increase, 32% increase in Montgomery County in homelessness, and the families now make up 36% of the homeless population. So again, eviction rates, severity of the crisis, high rents, stagnant wages, all of these things you've been hearing about. Also, domestic violence can contribute to this, and we need an expanded family overflow shelter to meet the demand. We urge the county to strengthen partnerships and establish a seamless continuum of care between the behavioral health and the correctional systems. We've also been speaking about the sequential intercept mapping process. We know how important that is at all intercepts. Decisive coordinated action is needed to ensure that the individuals experiencing homelessness have access to these resources. And we're pleased that the homeless program has expanded psychiatric services it offers in its shelters and permanent housing. Again, supporting the highlighting the support of peer specialists in the capacity of the coordinated entry system. We applaud Montgomery County's coordinated entry system for embracing housing first principles across all programs and services and supporting client choice and self-determination. We urge the county to also continue, as has been mentioned already, to focus on landlord discrimination and strengthen eviction prevention, again, collaborating with organizations to ensure the fair housing and investigations. We encourage you and urge you to involve and utilize the Mental Health Advisory Committee, as you have heard from our other councils and commissions. Our expertise and the voices of lived experience with county programs and services are part of what brings our volunteers to our commission. We would like to seek to protect the current funding streams and programs to ideally continue the growth and expansion of mental and behavioral health services in our county. Our group of dedicated volunteers and commissioners have deep understanding of our county behavioral health programs and the lived experience, and our volunteers are advising the county, seeking to advise the county based on this collective knowledge and experience. If we could partner with you more, please. We are hoping to be involved and perhaps invited to some of these conversations, so we may offer our feedback and guidance during this decision-making effort that we will have to continue to make hard decisions and, as you've said, do more with less. We also hope to better understand where threats can be anticipated so that we can most effectively target our advocacy at the state and county level. We also want to continue to work with county stakeholders to understand and adapt to this landscape and our other partners here that have been testifying this morning. Again, our advocacy has been focused on the needs of Montgomery County, and we have been unable, as you've heard again from Laura Mitchell, that our state level advocacy has been thwarted somewhat, and we would like to make our advocacy more directly focused on our county issues and make ourselves available to you. Our committee, has actually been seeking the input of the other councils and committees to hear what are their overlapping concerns in behavioral health. And I know I've already been sharing some overlapping comments that we've been hearing this morning. We are actually gathering feedback from the other commissioners' priorities. And actually next month, we'll be bringing together a forum to discuss these not only with Council President Kate Stewart, but to think of more creative ways that we can collaborate and combine our resources together. So we seek to be involved with the County Council as much as possible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So I'll start with our Mr. Uriburu from our Latino Health Initiative. So among the many successes from LHI over the last several years has been the Health Promoters Program, which is, I've had the opportunity to attend several graduations and speak to the remarkable individuals that have participated in that program. I'm always struck, they bring their families. It's a big deal, and it's just so beautiful and warm. And obviously we're going to need to leverage those contacts and resources. Could you uplift, Mr. Uriburu, some other best practices, some other things that the Latino Health Initiative, there's no question that we have to be more creative and thoughtful and leverage our existing programs, but is there another initiative that you'd like to uplift or talk about as an example of what should be and could be expanded?
What is working the most at these times is the trust that different institutions like the Latino Health Initiative, nonprofits that have been forged over decades. Because of fear, that trust allows individuals to rely on these institutions. That is a fundamental asset that the county has, because folks tend not to go places or reach out to places where trust has not been established. So the collaboration among the different nonprofits over years is a practice that served us extremely well during COVID. The how we complement each other, how we can respond to crisis quite fast. I think that many of the strategies that were successful during COVID still apply. Speed, flexibility, and the collaboration with HHS. I have to say that I've worked with many directors of HHS, and no one has responded to my calls faster than Dr. Bridgers, even if to tell me that he's not available at that second. So, given when I talk about tier 3 needs, I'm talking about families in destitute. Suddenly the breadwinner lost his job, was being detained, and the family from 1 week to the other doesn't have shelter, doesn't have food, doesn't have absolutely anything. So that's what I'm talking about, and those numbers have been increasing, and we believe, that is the beginning of a new trend, not the end, and that will deepen over the coming months and maybe years. So I believe that we had demonstrated, we the county and the Latino Health Initiative in particular, demonstrated ability to meet the needs when most needed during COVID, and I think some of those lessons learned apply 100% at this time.
I appreciate that. There's no question the challenges are deepening and widening at the same time. You mentioned the perfect storm. And so we will continue to be partners and collaborate and seek your guidance and advice on what more we can and should be doing, both from a policy and a funding perspective.
So one more thing that to me is critical, and it's not just speaking with many other nonprofits, when I talk about flexibility, it's flexibility of approaches, but also what happened during COVID is that the county declared a state of emergency, and therefore programs and budgets had a lot of flexibility. So if focus needs to be put into mental health or case management, immediately programs were able to realign resources to do that. That is not happening yet. And I think that if we do not do it fast enough, we will fall asleep at the wheel, because some of us might not be seeing it, but some of us are seeing it already. So we need that flexibility ASAP. And checks and balances are great. Bureaucracy is the enemy of flexibility and being able to meet the needs that are new, are completely new. We're talking a brave new world here coming to us.
I appreciate that. And then with regards to our Mental Health Advisory Committee, I mean, that touches everything we've heard today, and especially our most vulnerable populations that are being disproportionately impacted by this madness that we're all seeing and feeling at the moment. So couldn't agree more with your comments about wanting to continue to be collaborative. And the other thing that I'll mention, and this is broadly among all the boards and commissions, but working with MCPS and our sister county agencies collaboratively, we had a recent update from our Parks Department talking about the wonderful services and that they provide. They play an important role in our overall mental health and behavioral health, and I think there's an opportunity to be even more intentional about programming and partnering with organizations like the Parks Department. There are many other examples, libraries, recreation, that I think would be good allies and expand your all's reach. So I look forward to trying to make more of those connections as I make my own transition in the near future. So thank you for that. We are going to go to Councilmember Lutke, followed by Councilmember Sales. And again, we're going to aim for a hard stop around 11 o'clock if we can.
Thank you. I agree 100% with everything you both said, and thank you for elevating that. The only one thing I wanted to offer, and I know it's come up a couple of times here today, is because of who can or cannot speak on behalf of a board, committee, or commission on legislative issues. And I say this all the time, even though you can't speak as the commissioner, you are free to introduce yourself as serving on that commission and then just say that you're there to speak in your individual capacity and let it go. Because this is important. And especially, we shouldn't have caps on providers in specific places. Like, this just should not be a thing. Needs are vast everywhere. And I recall back in, it was 2018, the state was required to put together a coverage analysis of behavioral health services available in every county. And when they put it together and put the draft together, and of course, since then, some of those places that served, our pediatric population shut down. So we lost stuff. And even then, it wasn't looking great. And they said, oh, well, look, Montgomery County has so many things. And I'm like, you didn't put the number expressed as a percentage of the population. And that matters. That's critical. We also have a lot of geographic diversity here, right? And so we have to be able to serve everyone regardless of where you live. And not everybody has public transit. So I am very attuned to that. I do think we need to do a better job of getting our residents, especially those who take the time to serve and volunteer and go deeper in the weeds on these things, to be able to write letters of support or opposition to things that are percolating down in Annapolis and be heard. So I do encourage everyone to do that. But thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing. This is a difficult time for all of us, but especially our immigrant community. And so I'm glad that they have a very vocal advocate, a very experienced advocate speaking on their behalf, with strong relationships across the county and state. And so we are certainly more attuned to the unique needs that presents and the instability that exists. We are here to advocate with you and for you. So thank you. And I can't speak enough about our mental health challenges that, every single, board, committee, and commission since yesterday has raised behavioral health as an ongoing concern, especially with what we're witnessing happening in our country. And just wanted to see if you can elaborate on any programming, collaboration for any of our populations that you've strengthened over the years with our students, young adults, particularly our immigrants, seniors, veterans, any of the boards, committees, and commissions that you've been able to set up more formal partnerships with, given the increased need for services.
Yes, thank you. We have spent time over the last couple of years building those partnerships. We meet regularly with AODAC and our partners in behavioral health. We also have invited, like Chief Hong came and spoke and gave us the information on housing. We've learned a great deal about the sequential intercept mapping and wanting to make more connections, again, with the justice community and the police force. We are continuing to strengthen that. I think that we have the opportunity to build the community connections, and I think that that's been one of the benefits of our commission. Fortunately, we're spread throughout the community. There's lots of different people who have different connections and know different resources. Again, as Laura Mitchell mentioned, what good are all these resources if people don't know about them? So getting the word out more, constantly talking about 988, that my mind is blown, all the people that don't even know what 988 is still, or even 311 and the benefits of that. So we are just continuing to put this message out. I know creative social networking has been mentioned as well. We're looking at doing that and continuing with our Commission on Health as well, who we've been partnering with, and our various minority health initiatives. We want to continue to do that and find ways to, wherever we can, get more of that information out to the public and out to our communities and out to the families that are probably pulling away from seeking help more than usual. So again, we'll continue to do that, and we're looking for ongoing opportunities and relationships to build that way.
It sounds good. We've heard about a decrease in, some of our residents with going to appointments, going to school. And so, we created coordinating entities during the pandemic, and now seeing how prevalent mental health has become throughout our community, it may be an opportune time to strengthen that coordination and see how we can build upon what we've learned in the past. And yes.
Oh, and I neglected to mention MCPS. We've been partnering very closely with them and continuing to as the Bridge to Wellness has grown and opportunities for more mental health services in schools.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. And did you want to speak to any of the health programs within MCPS, any partnerships? I know you are here wearing many hats, Mr. Yerviro. So anything you can mention with, you mentioned the past 4 months and how challenging it has been, but with all the programs we have in our schools and our wellness centers, any insights on, are we seeing more of our young people seeking services in our health centers?
Yes, so the young people are internalizing what they see happening with their parents, the fear of coming home and not finding mom or dad. It's not a fantasy. It's extremely real for many. We have had cases where that happened, and therefore you have a young adult in charge of siblings. So one of the things that was done during the pandemic was the creation of what we called community mental health, where we train members of the community to recruit and run their own mental health support groups. They're community-led. We call them community mental health workers. We've happy to share more information about that, but it's been extremely successful. It's been funded. The evaluation has been done by the University of Maryland, funded by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and thus far it's been thousands of people who have undergone, and we have those services for adults, high schoolers, and middle schoolers. They're in English, and sometimes they're only in Spanish. Again, the beauty is that they're independent. They run independently. They have supervision. Obviously, these are not clinical groups, but they have been, the response is amazing. The other thing that it does is that it puts members of the community in charge of their own healing. It's not someone else doing it. People get compensation because of that. And then the groups maintain over time. So the beauty of that is that there's support networks that maintain over time. So that has been a tremendous intervention that has yielded phenomenal results, particularly as it relates to anxiety. And happy to share the report. CAT7, I think it is the variable that they measure, one of the variables that they measure, and the researchers dance when there's a shift of 0.2, and they've seen shifts of 0.6. So they're incredibly hopeful with this intervention. Annie Casey is working to see if this could become a national model. So that has been an intervention that was created by HHS, Identity, the Latino Health Steering Committee initiative also, and it's been phenomenal in terms of its impact, not because I say it, but because of the evaluation results. Again, and the beauty is that it's community-led. It's not anyone. They recruit their own groups, they run them with supervision, and then people want to be part of that. So we go into all these different neighborhoods that are hard to reach for many people, and it's taking a life of its own.
I love that. I would love to see that report, and you had me at foundational grants. So to be continued.
Okay,
we'll
perfect.
follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for your leadership and dedication. We will now hear from, certainly last but not least, our two final boards and commissions today. First is our Montgomery Cares Advisory Board, followed by our Victim Assistance Advisory Board. And you can begin when you are ready.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Catherine Kelly. I'm a board-certified internal medicine physician, private practice owner of Kelly Collaborative Medicine, and a county contractor for healthcare for the homeless. I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Montgomery Cares Advisory Board, and thank you for the opportunity today to present our priorities. The Montgomery Cares Advisory Board provides guidance to the county executive and county council, which financially and operationally support the healthcare safety net programs for uninsured, low-income residents of Montgomery County. The MidCab is focused on ensuring that with the support of our partners, including the Primary Care Coalition, the area hospitals, the county DHHS, and the exceptional capabilities of the clinics themselves, the provider network remains strong. By leveraging these public-private partnerships, the healthcare delivery system helps to reduce costs, and efforts are taken to invest in new resources to ensure that county residents in need receive high-quality healthcare services. The Montgomery Cares Advisory Board has identified specific priorities for each of the healthcare for the uninsured programs, which includes Montgomery Cares, Care for Kids, County Dental, Healthcare for the Homeless, and Montgomery Perinatal Program. The following priorities will guide the board in fiscal year 27, and I just want to emphasize that we did one for each program because we are covering 5 different programs. The first priority relates to the Montgomery Cares Program, which supports primary care for low-income, uninsured, and underinsured adult county residents. MidCab would like to continue to build towards paying health centers a regionally competitive rate by increasing the fee-for-service reimbursement rate to $175 per encounter. At the current reimbursement level, clinics are at risk of not maintaining financial stability. The target rate of $175 would cover 70% of the cost of care, which would be a smart, cost-effective public investment. The MidCab recommends the County Council, County Executive, and DHHS on their decisions to raise the provider reimbursement rate from $102.15 to $113.37 per encounter in fiscal year 26. This is a notable step to reaching MidCab's goal, but more work is still needed to reach the goal of $175 per encounter. During these unprecedented times, addressing healthcare access and health equity is essential to the well-being of the entire community. The second priority that MidCab would like to highlight is increasing capacity for specialty dental services to address emergency and complex surgical cases for 125 Care for Kids children. Specifically for endodontists, emergency surgeries and complex cases, operating room cases, and necessary surgical procedures that are required in advance of a child receiving medically necessary orthodontic services. Due to the current limited capacity and an influx of need over the past fiscal year, many of the referrals for these services have been placed on a waiting list. Increasing the capacity for these services is necessary to ensure essential oral health care is provided by Montgomery County youth. Increased support is also needed for endodontic services through the county dental program. To reduce the incidences of patients with dangerous infections of the oral cavity and cases that require tooth replacement treatment, support for an endodontist or specialty endodontic services through county providers via the oral health solicitation is needed. As a temporary solution, the DHHS dental program has hired 2 general dentists that are able to perform molar endodontics. If unable to secure an endodontist, additional support for supplies to ensure that these dentists could maintain current services and quality of care will be critical. The fourth priority centers around healthcare aid program support in our shelters and for previously homeless clients in permanent supportive housing for the Healthcare for the Homeless program. The number of adults and children experiencing homelessness in Montgomery County increased by 32% from 2024, as Chief Hong mentioned in her report, and is anticipated to continue to rise as a result of inflation and federal administration changes. To decrease the likelihood of someone re-entering homelessness, decrease hospitalizations or hospital readmissions, and decrease the overuse of emergency room visits for those experiencing homelessness, MidCab is in favor of supporting a program which will provide equitable opportunities for clients to age in place. This program will serve as a safety net for cases that are screened out or do not meet the mandate for an adult protective service case or have been added to a wait list through Medicaid personal care services in need of a home health aide and or personal care. Now more than ever, support is needed for these most vulnerable residents in our county. Strategies are needed to strengthen the county's workforce and expand bilingual behavioral health services in Montgomery County. So for MedCap's final priority, we are encouraging support to create 2 new bilingual social workers therapist or merit behavioral health case manager positions for the Montgomery Perinatal Program to reduce barriers for high-risk pregnant women in assessing critical behavioral health services by providing one-on-one therapy, clinical case management to connect families with resources, and biweekly pregnancy and postpartum support groups. We look forward to working with the County Executive, County Council, and DHHS and continue to strengthen the impact of our public-private partnership, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Next, we will hear from our Victim Services Advisory Board.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Wendy Ayala, and I am one of the chairs for the Victim Services Advisory Board. I'll jump right into our priorities. Our priorities have remained the same for the last 2 years, really focusing on maintaining the funding for trauma services to maintain their full-time staff, which currently is at 8. 6 are filled, 2 are in process of being hired. But really maintaining those services. We do understand funding is always a concern, and so we were at a point where we were asking for additional funding, but really the focus has been, like I mentioned, on just maintaining what staff we currently do have at trauma services. Although crime has decreased in specific areas, specific types of crime, there is still a large concern. Crime still continues to exist, right, where there is a strong need. We have remained, we've continued to get updates from CJCC consistently, which has been extremely helpful. Unfortunately, we have not had someone from the police department, our ex officio person, for almost 2 years, I would say. We have not had someone on our board who was able to provide that information. And so that has been a gap for us, but again, we continue to stay as informed as possible to ensure that we can continue advocating for this priority. We also have focused on bridge housing, and I know we've had a few conversations with you all and a few of the other county council members about where we can advocate here. This has been a huge part of our conversation, especially because of the challenge of, one, we don't have quorum. We have been struggling to obtain members, and we lost a large number at the end of last year. And so we have really been working on informing those new members who have joined us at the beginning of the year, and ensuring that they're aware of the initiatives that are currently happening in the county, where the gaps are and where we can advocate for. And so a lot of it has been focused on affordable housing, getting a better understanding on that. Housing is still limited, bridge housing specifically for those who are victims of general crimes where the supports are really limited. And so that is something that we have continued to focus on for that reason. We have also, with bridge housing, focused on that vulnerability index, which is that tool, a widely recognized tool for determining the need for housing assistance in Montgomery County. And so because domestic violence victims are not scored as highly on that scale, that does limit what housing they do have access to. And so there's a lot of conversation still with that, and I know the county has made some progress, but of course we continue to advocate for additional progress. As I mentioned, some of the challenges have been with not being able to even vote on meeting minutes, and so our board has not been able to even do something as small as that. Again, we have tried to maintain to remain informed as much as possible. Even with being able to advocate for certain legislation has also been a struggle. We do know that we heard earlier from our mental health and our alcohol committees, and we need someone from our board to represent there. But again, because we're very limited, recruitment is very much active. We have individuals who want to be on our board, but the postings have not been shared by the county executive's office, and so that's been very limiting. We have had some successes though, and so we have connected with MCPS and being able to share their events, be a part of their events, be able to help with anything that we can. Trauma Services has been wonderful in ensuring that we are staying connected to all the events that they're hosting, that we're able to support them in that aspect. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, one of the things Hi, my name is Shan Anderson. I'm also a co-chair of the Victim Service Advisory Board. One of the things we've also been doing as well, and we would like to lend our support and know the ways that we can advocate for you guys as well, is a legislative support for the following bill, which is support for HB 0613, which is a criminal procedure for protection of identity of victims of sexual assault. This bill is intended to strengthen the privacy protections for alleged victims of sexual assault by limiting public disclosure of their identifying information in criminal or juvenile delinquency court filings. So any way that we can advocate for any bills that or anything you need advocation for as far as victim services, please let us know, and we have no problem with our board or advocating as individuals until our board is actually fully functional. Thank you.
Thank you all. That was incredibly impressive testimony, incredibly important during these dark times. I'll kick us off. And Dr. Kelly, thank you again for your leadership. I know the partnership with the Primary Care Coalition is critical. And I would encourage you in real time to advise the council and through Ms. Clemens Johnson, changes you are seeing as a result of the federal policy changes. We discussed this during our public health briefing. I know that several clinics have reported to me that they've started to see an increase in no-show appointments for obvious reasons, people feeling uncomfortable, scared to leave their homes, let alone attend a medical appointment or a government appointment. And so to the degree to which we can mitigate that with telehealth and all of the other best practices that we've been able to instill, please, share with us and let us know. The other issues of recruitment and retention of our incredible public health staff, that's going to become increasingly more difficult because many of our frontline public health staff are immigrants themselves and are being targeted and feeling scared in their own right. So that's an area we'll have to keep a close eye on. And just in general, and this is across the board, and I should have mentioned this at the top, I know that our caretakers on the ground are feeling the stress and the pressure of this moment and the weight and the impact to the clients and patients they serve. And so I want to make sure we're taking care of our caretakers. And I know Dr. Burgers and I have had that conversation. We had it a lot during COVID. And I do want to also uplift several of the committees and commissions have discussed the responsiveness of our HHS committee, which I greatly appreciate, Dr. Bridgers, but obviously something that we're going to need to focus on. So no questions, Dr. Kelly. I just want to uplift those comments and express my appreciation. And with regards to our Office of Victim Services, or our Victim Services Advisory Board, I've been very impressed with your advocacy over the years to uplift and balance some of the conversations we've been having at a higher level, not forgetting our victims. So I just can't thank you enough for that continued leadership. It has led to some not just fruitful conversations, but actual policy changes. And we will certainly follow up. And Councilmember Lukey is on our Public Safety Committee, and I'm sure was probably texting while we were talking about wanting to make sure you all have the appropriate representation from law enforcement officials, because that is critical to this conversation. So thank you for that. I will turn it over to Councilmember Sales, followed by Councilmember Lutke to wrap us up.
All
Councilmember
right.
Sales.
Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz, Chair Albornoz. Just very quickly, starting with our Montgomery Cares Advisory Board, in addition to the recommendations that he shared to partner with PCC to share data, what metrics would you propose we evaluate to focus the county's investments in our safety net services that we know are going to be impacted over next fiscal year?
And I think we put some of that in the increasing in the amount for reimbursements at the $175. We have gone back and forth on what that actual cost of care looks like, and that is a significant investment from the county. It will downstream keep us from spending more money in emergency rooms, more money on care that is more, I guess, for more critical cases. As that costs more, the prevention is better. I think the other, what we're going to see is as the Medicaid and Medicare cuts and different things that will likely be handed down if we do see increases in premiums. More people will lose health insurance. So there will be more individuals who will be seeking care at the safety net clinics who aren't necessarily immigrants or aren't necessarily undocumented, because I think that that's been a focus of like who is going to be impacted the most. I think they are already, as Mr. Albanos talked about, but you're going to see more people who were federal workers who were in different places that are going to now need access to care and they're not getting that. So I think we have to look at what that does on the state and federal level of Medicaid and Medicare cuts and premium increases. And PC, just to talk about PCC, they did present some information last night on how much telemedicine and what other things we can do that I'm happy to have them share with you all that can kind of give some clear metrics on where we are. I think you also have to look at the homeless numbers that we're talking about, because that's an integral part of what we do and what I do personally with healthcare for the homeless. So we're looking at that 32% increase. That's going to be an increase in terms of how many people are looking to access care.
Thank you. Yes, I look forward to receiving that information, and the discussion will continue. With regards to our Victims Services Advisory Board, I serve on the legislative committee with MACO, so looking forward to expressing our support for HB 613. And not sure if you know of any local efforts that we can create here to, protect data sharing information or practices to ensure we are truly protecting our survivors' confidentiality.
As far as anything local, we have currently not focused on. I do not recall the exact number of the bill this past legislative session that we did. We had our eye on, however, it did not move forward, and we weren't able to advocate. We were only able to advocate as individuals. Just, again, we had a transition in staffing and changing, and also we weren't at quorum. And so we welcome any suggestions, though, and I do strongly believe that once we do have more information from, like, let's say our police department, then we are able to more formulate an idea of what we can do, and then, of course, bring that to the county council.
Yes, and I know the sheriff's office attended the recent acknowledgement of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I'm sure he or someone from the sheriff's office will be more than willing to serve on the board once we share this need with them. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. And I think it's specific to MCPD, not the sheriff's office, right? The board position, the ex officio position?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I already let the chief know that they're missing. So he was
Thank
right.
you so much.
I was. In fact, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
We
so
greatly
anyway,
appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully that will be fixed soon. And I noted that House Bill 613 last year didn't move out of committee, but it had plenty of positive support. So, including from our state's attorney's office, of course, and from the office of the state prosecutor and many others all across the state. I wondered if you knew whether Delegate Guyton was planning to bring the bill back or one of the co-sponsors was planning to bring the bill back. I could certainly reach out to her, but I didn't know if you'd already had those conversations.
Yes, we have been having that conversation, and we were looking into finding out if the bill was going to be brought back again. However, by not having a fully staffed board, if we do support the bill, we have to do it as individuals.
Right.
So we're kind of just looking to find out if that bill is going to come back. We do have one of our members. She's what's her position again? She's a lobbyist, and so she's looking at possibly all the bills we can actually advocate for as far as victim services. And so that is one of the ones we're looking at going for again. But we need to find out if it's going to be passed. And as I stated before, if you guys know of any victim service advisory, any bills that could support victims, if you would let us know, we'll definitely add it to our list, and we can start looking and working on those as well. But we kind of want to do it early. I think we started a little late last time, and some of the meetings had already happened and transpired. So this time we were looking at doing it starting last month. Then we found out now we can't vote on anything or do anything as a board.
Right.
But we definitely want to start that process earlier.
So I'll look into that, and I can, let you know what I find out. I know it wasn't cross-filed in the Senate. That might be the plan this year. See if she could find someone willing to cross-file it for her, because that can help speed things along. But I'll check into that, especially knowing, again, and I want to personally apologize after sitting through 2 days of hearing the number of boards, committees, and commissions who are not fully at capacity because things have not been posted. And there's no excuse. Like, it's absurd. And you all are trying to do good work. You're volunteering your time and your service and your leadership skills and your professional knowledge. And, we owe you better. And so I'm sure all three of us will be following up with the executive branch on getting those posted. But definitely, thank you for that. I know that GoCap has a conference every spring. I hope one or more of you get to go to that in April. I think it's in April usually. Yeah. It's a great conference. If I hear of any bills percolating, I do track them during session. Like, I track a wide range of stuff, whether it's health and human services related or public safety, criminal justice, or schools, whatever. I can't say my tracking skills are fabulous, but it's something that I have done for years in my prior work, and so I feel compelled to do it now too. So please do reach out throughout, like, hey, have you heard about, do you know the backstory on what's going on? Please do, because things do move fast and furious during session, and it's you never know who you're going to get the skinny from, so you might as well use your resources, and I'm happy to provide that help. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for your service, not just as chair of the board, but also professionally in the folks that you serve with your care. And thank you for continued advocacy regarding the service rate for providers, which I know has been a huge challenge, especially now more than ever. And then also with respect to the expanded dental care. So thank you for flagging that. That's something, we can have some deeper discussions with HHS about prior to budget season to see what we might be able to do there, because oral care and adverse outcomes related to things that start as oral care problems can create significant health challenges that often people aren't aware of until they've already suffered them. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your time, your energy, your commitment. I very much echo Councilmember Lutke's comments about something as basic as, just posting these positions, let alone recruiting. And so we will follow up. But this has been an important 2 days. Look forward to continued collaboration, and we certainly are going to need it over the next several years. Thank you all so much. And with that, our committee session is adjourned.